All right, everyone. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Aware Athlete Show. I'm your host, Scott Forrester, and today we have with us Taro Iwamoto. And Taro is a physical therapist assistant, I understand. And also, I also am a physical therapist assistant at the present time. So anyway, Taro is also a certified Feldenkrais practitioner, and we'll hear a little bit more about that soon. So Taro also, he grew up in Japan and he moved to the United States to study, and he now currently has a Feldenkrais practice of his own called Transform Move. So thank you so much for being on the show today, Taro.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
excited to be here.
very, very pleased. Yeah. So you grew up in Japan, then you moved to the United States, had to learn a whole new language and a whole new culture.
Yes.
What can you tell us about that?
It was 1997. I was 18 years old. I just finished high school. I came here, to the United States. It's Hawaii, so it's not. It's an easier transition than just coming to maybe. Right now, I'm in Seattle area because, as most people know, Hawaii, Honolulu, there's a lot of Asian and Japanese cultural influence. So it's not. It's somewhere between almost Hawaii, somewhere between Japan and the United States, in a way that it's not a completely new country, because there's quite a few Japanese people. So that was that helped me transition to coming to the United States and getting adjusted. But
so that's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a long story, but Japan, I don't know how much you know about Japan but culturally, it's not very diverse, especially if you're in a city, big city like Tokyo, Osaka. There are more people from all over the countries. But for the most part, Japan is a very homogeneous culture and all Japanese in one ethnicity almost, right? And so having been there and then grew up in Japan, and I didn't really know much. I didn't really know what to expect. How I got to the United States is because my mom's influence, and my mom's interested in moving to the States, and one day she never did, but she was studying English, and I wasn't really much interested in learning English, but I became interested. She influenced me and to become interested in learning English, and then by the time I was 18, and then she offered me the opportunity to come to the States and to study, because she had a best friend in Hawaii. But anyways, as an 18 years old boy, and didn't really know much better, and so I was pretty, courage, and I wasn't afraid to come to here, and so it wasn't really that difficult actually, and adapting and to the United States, and at the first year, because there's more excitement and more just fun things, and it's so stimulating because I've never been exposed to such a different cultural diversity, and meeting with people from all over the world. My first school, coming from in different parts of the Asian countries, and from Europe and all over the place, and that was just so refreshing. So it was more fun and more exciting than scary, and so the first year. So that helped me actually overcome that fear and anxiety. I really didn't feel that I was very nervous or anything like that.
Wow. Yeah. So that going to Hawaii was really just a wonderful time to transition. You had a lot of help, a lot of Japanese people there, and yeah. So that's awesome. So it didn't seem so abrupt to you then. Mm-hmm. And now your family's a long way off. Do you visit them in Japan often, or?
Not as often as I'd like to. Maybe once every other year or every 2 years or something like that. But they come to the States and to visit us as well. Oh. So it makes it easy. But it's a lot easier than back in 1997, where we used to still email. Not everybody had emails in Japan, and so I was writing the letters, and then it'd take a week or 10 days to get there, and then I had to wait another 10 days or even 2 weeks to get there. So it's a lot different now. You got the Facebook, you got all different internet application that you can use, and you can talk on the phone easily. And so that just makes it a lot easier to now communicate and see each other, although not in person, but still feels like a lot closer now because of the technology.
Yeah, that part helps a lot. I remember when email was just beginning to be used. So what are some of your formative experiences growing up in Japan?
So what do you mean by that, formative experiences?
What are some of the things that you were interested in? Some of the things that influenced you? Yeah.
Okay. So my background, my dad is still, he's a martial artist, and he was practicing at home. So I was kind of watching him doing karate practice at home. And so he influenced me and to start karate and the martial arts. I was younger, 6 years old, 5 years old. I was kind of mimicking him doing all kind of moves. And so then I think it was age 5 or 6, and I joined school, karate school dojo, and then that's the beginning of, I guess, my movement background. So ever since, and I've always been involved in the sports and martial arts movement, some sort of movements. So that's definitely martial arts, and watching my dad and doing that is definitely a big influence as I was growing up over there. And then he was also a musician, but that didn't really influence me so much. I didn't really become so interested in learning he was a professional jazz drummer. He tried to teach me, but that didn't really work well.
Didn't really
but I kind of wish I did, but now. But the martial arts parts, definitely, he had influenced me.
So do you continue with the martial arts to this day?
A little bit on my own. If I had more time, I'm interested in continuing with Aikido. I started Aikido just a few years back, and I'm still relatively new, but I'm very fascinated with the movement principles of Aikido and Tai Chi also. But I do practice my own.
Yeah. Aikido is very interesting, actually, because it's the spiritual practice is actually more was intended to be about than the martial arts aspect. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah.
So what did you discover first? Did you discover physical therapy, or did you discover the Feldenkrais method?
So first, my professional career in college, I studied sports medicine, and then I became a certified athletic trainer. So my naturally, I was playing sports. I was playing rugby at that time in college and high school too in Japan. And so I became an athletic trainer working for football team, basketball team, soccer, wrestling, all kinds of sports. And that was so injury prevention, injury rehab, reconditioning, and that was my career. So I started as an assistant athletic trainer at the college, and then after that, a couple of years later, I became interested in physical therapy. So not only working with only the one specific population, collegiate athlete, but also became interested in working with the people from different groups, different age groups, different athletic level, and things like that. So then I started working for an outpatient physical therapy clinic as an exercise specialist. And so I met the physical therapy first, and then I became a PT assistant, physical therapy assistant, while I was studying and I was working in the clinic.
So you went back to school again and became a PTA, yeah.
Right, and then in the process, and I found the Feldenkrais method. So it's athletic training, physical therapy, and then Feldenkrais method.
So you found the Feldenkrais method through the influence of your PT clinic you were working at?
I had one coworker, physical therapist, and he's also a Tai Chi practitioner, and so he's into a lot of movements and the somatic education type of thing. So he's the first one. I heard the word, the Feldenkrais method, for the first time from him. It was maybe about 2008, 2007, right around that time. At that time, never heard of that. And so I never really paid that much attention. But then over the years, and I heard that multiple times, then I started learning a little bit more. But yeah, about 2008 or so from one of my coworkers, a PT.
So one of your coworkers knew about Feldenkrais. Was he a practitioner?
He's not a practitioner. He did consider at one point in becoming a Feldenkrais practitioner, but at that time he had invested so much time and money in the martial in the Tai Chi, and for many years, and so he found that there's a lot of similarity between Tai Chi practice and the Feldenkrais method. So he decided to actually continue with his Tai Chi and practice, and then use the Tai Chi as a means to help his patients and clients.
Yeah. So now you heard about the Feldenkrais method, but what got you interested enough to devote 4 years of your life to the training?
Yeah, it's a commitment, right?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. So back in 2008, when I heard just the once or twice, and I still didn't really catch my attention. I heard the name, I remember, and then a few years later, I heard the name again. In the clinic that I was working with, we used to see many higher level athletic population, and then we focus on movement re-education, neuromuscular re-education.
Okay.
And so I was really interested in teaching people how to move better, more efficiently. And then I started studying more. And then the name, the Feldenkrais method, it kind of came up in the literatures or, heard from somebody else. By then I heard that multiple times. So I was paying more attention to that. Then I became more interested. And when I studied and when I researched about it, and then I found out that it's a 4-year training. And it's a lot of commitment. But I'm type of the person, if I want to do it, then I kind of want to do it. Right? So I kind of approached to the manager, my boss at that time, and said, okay, well, I'm really interested in this. Is going to be really good for the clinic and myself. And of course they said, well, how are you gonna do that? Like, that's 2 months out of the year, and for 4 years, and you had to be out of the clinic. And how are you gonna do that? And so he that wasn't really reasonable at that time. And so I said, okay, I'll think about it. And then he said, okay, well, think about it. And then as I did a little more research and then started connecting with the local practitioners, Washington and Oregon, and I spoke on the phone. And I kind of talked to them about, okay, so what's the Feldenkrais method? I work in a PT clinic, and I kind of asked them, okay, so how would you approach this type of patient or something like that? And I met Gordon Brown. He's a physical therapist, and he's a Feldenkrais practitioner locally in Washington. And he's been teaching integrated movement classes for PT, PTAs, and OT assistants throughout the United States. And so I had a chance to email and talk to him, and then he said, if you're interested in, here's just offering a class in a couple of weeks, and if I was interested in, why don't you sign up? And so I signed up, and I took the class a weekend. It's only 2 days, right? So although it's not a Feldenkrais workshop, it is geared towards PTs, right, and OTs, mostly movement, but using the same principles and focusing on the movement part. So I took that class in 2 days. And after 2 days, it just immediately, wow, I really want to learn more about that. My body liked that. and never something that I never experienced before. It was just so, I was so amazed and I was so shocked. I couldn't really explain, but this is it. I want to do it. And but 4 years, they had already started into the second year, or so I couldn't join that. And so, but Gordon Brown, he had the 2-year certification program for specific, it's not a Feldenkrais, but again, using the same movement principle. So it's for PTs and OTs and massage therapists. And so I joined that 2 years, and over the 2 years, I thought, okay, well, I'll give myself 2 years. And by the time I finished the 2 years and I still like it, and then I'm going to do it. And I said to myself, and I talked to the manager, I kept insisting, this is good. And then I kept talking to my coworkers, and then, I did the in-services at the clinic, and I said, well, this is what I'm learning, and this is what the piece of the Feldenkrais method, the principles, and this is how it's going to be helpful for our patients. And so they clearly like that, and then my manager liked that. And then by the end, he was convinced that it is helpful for the clinic, and then for me and for everybody else. And so he let me join that.
Yeah. So that's quite a story. I think that the Feldenkrais method for me was something I'd been looking for all my life, but didn't know it.
Yeah.
Until I kind of discovered it. So yeah, that's that. And you made the commitment, and then I remember when I started the first session, I just said, well, I'm going to do this. We'll see if I can make the next one. And eventually you made it all the way through, and it was just amazing.
Yeah.
So so you convinced your boss there at the PT clinic that it would be good for the clinic. And along the way, so after 2 years, you can teach ATMs.
Right.
And so you began to bring some of that to the clinic. And how did that work out? Because the interface between PT and Feldenkrais is not always smooth.
Yeah, especially the first couple years. Yeah, and as I was learning and then struggling to how to blend them together, right? I mean, there's a lot of conflicts in what we're trying to accomplish as a physical therapy assistant and OPT in our setting for our patients. And so I was, of course, naturally, I struggle, but eventually it actually became pretty smooth, and learned that. And where did I start? Let me see. Sorry, what was your question?
Well, the blending, the junction between physical therapy and Feldenkrais method could be very beneficial, but that's not always a smooth edge there to fit those two together. Depends on the mindset of the physical therapist you're working for.
Yeah, and what I have realized around that time and during the first couple of years is that it's just a mindset really is. And then I realized that I didn't have to change anything other than my mindset. So I don't have to change how I work with the people. But for example, in a PT setting, and we look for impairments and dysfunctions, and then we make those goals, right? So we're trying to, these are the impairments and these are the functional dysfunctions, and then we need to correct that, whatever the impairments, right? And whether it's a muscle strength or balance issues, whatever that might be. But instead of looking at them as impairments or dysfunctions, and just looking at them as an opportunities for improvement, right?
Right.
So
if you said it that way, it sounds, that's good.
Then you're just going to do the same thing, still approach it. But as you change your mindset, you change how you approach and how you work with them. And then they can change. They'll change how they're being perceived. And so the whole interaction experience changed.
Mm-hmm. Right? That's fantastic.
So because I was like, wow, that was actually easy. That wasn't too bad.
Yeah, no, I had that same experience myself. A lot of conflict between, how do I fit this in? And the first 2 years, you're not really sure what it is exactly, what the Feldenkrais method is. In fact, we had students, they would say, well, what is the method? What is the Feldenkrais method? But it was what we were learning.
Yeah, right. It was the learning experience, and it still is, but it has become a lot easier after 2 years or so. I would say,
yeah. So you were able to state that Feldenkrais said to correct is incorrect, but in your PT setting, you stated how can the say that again? How can the patient get positive benefit or?
Sure. Yeah. So if I do say, say you find impairments in ankle mobility in specific range of motion or something like that, right? And then in the PT documentation, you write that. Okay. But instead of saying that, there's an opportunity for more improvements there.
Yeah. So I stated it in a positive way. Yeah.
Right. So
that's good. So
angle.
it's a strengths-oriented practice,
Right.
and that's a very good way to state it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So can you tell our listeners who may not know, and it's really important, what are the modalities that you teach the Feldenkrais method in? There's two ways you can teach it, awareness through movement, and could you explain the two modalities there, the awareness through movement and functional integration? How are they different, and what if somebody doesn't know about the Feldenkrais, just kind of give them some examples or verbal examples of how it's taught?
That's a tough one, right? Okay. Awareness through movement lesson is a group class, and where teachers, us the practitioners, verbally guide students through a sequence of the movements. And unlike most other classes, exercise classes, we practitioners do not show people how to move. And so they're not really watching us and to copy what we're doing. What we're really doing, the purpose of us not showing them how to move the specific movement is that they can bring awareness to their body, to their sensations, instead of somewhere else, outward.
Yeah.
Right. So the words that we use are used to draw their attention so that they can pay attention to their body, their experience. And then our job is to specifically guide and draw their attention to specific places of their body or the sensation so that they can become aware of something that they otherwise would not have noticed.
Right.
Right. And that's the huge benefit. Otherwise, if I do show students, this is how I want you to move, and they're not in the body, and then their attention is not in their body, their attention is they're watching, using their eyes and watching me. And then, so what are they learning, right? What are they learning? And that's the difference. In Feldenkrais method, the focus is about the learning and learning about how you move, how you're being. And our job is to facilitate that process. We guide through the verbally in the class. And then functional integration, which is a one-on-one, hands-on aspect of the Feldenkrais method. And then to me, it is, for the most part, it is with the same intention. The intention is, instead of using the words to guide their attention, we're using the hands to guide their attention. Their attention, meaning their nervous system's attention. We don't say the words, but we know, because our intention is very clear, what we're trying to, how we're going to facilitate their learning, where we want their attentions to be. We use that with our hands and through the movement. And that's the difference. And so we can be more specific. In a class, you may have 20 people in a class, and it's impossible to be so specific to guide all people's attention to exactly the same way. Mm-hmm. But with your hands, with the one person at the table, you can be more specific. And then you can, because you're with the one person, with the intention being so clear, and then you can guide their attention to specifically where you want their attention to be and to learn something, maybe.
Right. So you did a beautiful job of explaining that, of really clarifying, hitting the point of, what are we after? It's for people to learn something in themselves, to learn something about what they're doing.
Right.
That can make their life better for them. So you did that. That was so clear. I appreciate that. And
thank you.
I think the Feldenkrais method, it was just a genius, because this society, this world, there's always been a tension between just being material and something a little bit deeper. And because this society is so superficial, and the attention is always on the 2-minute soundbite and so on, it's so superficial that it's very difficult to get people to pay attention to themselves at all. Sure. And so that's why I think the Feldenkrais method is just a genius method for actually getting you into the environment where you're going to start doing that, because that's the whole environment, the whole process, the whole thing you're involved in the whole time you're doing it.
Right.
So brilliant. It was a brilliant method.
I agree.
Yeah. So as time goes on, you can fit that into the clinic better and better.
Yeah, and so over the years, and initially I started out in outpatient physical therapy clinic, and then just along the way, things change, and now I have a 3-year-old boy, and so I ended up actually changing the job and changing the setting, and we ended up buying a new home, and then we moved, and so a lot of things happened, and so I don't anymore work in outpatient physical therapy setting. I do work in a home health physical therapy setting.
Oh,
It's a very different job. And
yeah.
I go into the people's home who are homebound and not able to leave their home safely. So their functional level is a lot different than in an outpatient setting where people can physically get into the clinic by themselves. Right?
Yeah, it's a very different setting. And I started out in outpatient, and I thought I would never be an inpatient, but actually it's about 50-50 now, and I'm still working inpatient. And it's been a blessing to have been involved in the Feldenkrais method, because in the setting I'm in, you have to slow down to the speed of the patient that you're working with.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously they have a lot of comorbidities and a lot of health issues.
Yes.
And so you really have to take your time with them. Whatever speed they go at, that's what speed you have to go at.
Yep.
And so sometimes when you deal with a young athlete, you're going at a pretty high speed. Even in physical therapy, you're standing on the dyno disc on one leg and catching a ball and doing all kinds of things. Yeah. Maybe now you're standing on the ball of your foot on the dyno disc and catching a ball or something like that.
Right.
And it's kind of fun, but really the ability to slow down is so beneficial.
Oh yeah, I couldn't agree more.
And and the ability to touch people in a way that slows them down. That's an amazing thing too. So can you tell us a little bit about starting your own practice? How did you do that? How do you keep your clientele coming? And how do you, I also have done that. And on one occasion I had a practice outside the clinic, and it worked pretty well. But how do you mesh that? And how did you start your practice? How do you keep your clients coming in? How do you advertise it? How do you appeal to people? Because the method offers so much, but nobody knows about it.
Yeah, this is an ongoing process, and I'm still learning. And it's unlike a physical therapy. Well, physical therapy, most people know. Most people
Yes.
know what the physical therapy is, or most people know roughly what yoga is, or chiropractic is, and so they know exactly, or for the most part, they know what they're getting into, what they're before they come into the clinic or any the places. For for Feldenkrais method, that's not the case, and we have to understand who you're looking for and who you're talking to, and then what kind of the people you are trying to serve, and then where they're coming from, and then what do they need, and things like that. So it's not easy, and this is still I'm learning, and because I'm kind of going back and forth with my background in athletic settings, and it's easy for me to work with the higher level people with the athletic, backgrounds, sports related training, because I've done that for many years myself, and then working in those settings. But now that I've been doing it in home health, and so I do work with the people who may not really play that sports or any sports, and we're just mobility level is much different. And so part of me is trying to I'm trying to figure out who is it that I really want to serve the most.
Yeah.
And and of course I want to say everyone. Right?
Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions. Do you have a specific group of people that what do you call it? Anyway, group of people that you want to work with or are drawn towards, or do you try to work with everybody?
Yeah. So over the last few years, and working in home health physical therapy, my clientele and population types is very different from the days that I work in an outpatient, and tend to be a little bit older, 80s, 70s.
Mhm.
And so what I have realized in the last few years that balance and ability, and I ask my clients in home health setting, and so if there's only one thing that you would like to improve, and from the physical therapy and working with me, what would that be? And I ask everybody, and then most of them will say, I want to walk better. I want to walk better.
Mhm.
And so the walking is such a fundamental um, component of most people's life, and ability to do that well is related to balance. And so a lot of them are fearful of falling because they have probably had multiple falls. And so once people had the falls, and then their ability to move and changes, there's just, and then the quality of the life, it changes, and so dramatically. And they may not even realize that their balance is maybe so affected. Then I became more interested in helping people. Okay, I wish I could help people, before they're getting into 80s and then 90s, and then they can maybe start working at something to improve. And they can still make an improvements in at 90s or 80s, and right. But really, if they had met the Feldenkrais method or something like that, and that they can start to do something that'll impact and that'll change their movement quality, and then they would have been a lot in a different place.
It's much easier to maintain something than to regain it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that I became interested in helping people, and during that transitional age, like maybe 50s and the 60s, and then they're still mobile enough that they can do a lot of things.
Yeah.
But then definitely the quality of the movement, the quality of walking, not the same as it used to be. This is the time that I really want to help, and
Wow.
they can do something to make their life, and they make a huge impact on their lives, and I can help. And so that's been my interest in the last recently.
So is there any business conflict between what you do in home health and your own personal business?
Not really. I stated clearly, and that I do practice, uh, teach classes, movement classes, mindful movement classes based on the Feldenkrais method, and then I do see clients in my own home, and this is what I do. So I do, and they do know that. My employer knows that, and then I did state that. Okay, well, there's the boundary, so I'm not going to promote my business to my clients, right?
Yeah.
To my home health,
Mhm.
physical therapy patients or their families, or my employee, the coworkers, anything like that. So it's just separate, and I'm not gonna cross the boundaries. So I just made it very clear, and it's been okay. It's been fine.
Yeah. So do you do any advertising, or is it all word of mouth?
Mostly the word of mouth, and then for the classes, I make flyers, and then I post them and use in the social media. I share this, share the classes, upcoming workshops, and things like that. But I don't promote a lot right now, because I still do 70 to 80% home health and PT, and then 20% private practice classes, including the classes and one-on-one.
So you have a good place to do your classes?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, good. That worked
Got a
out.
nice place, yeah.
So what has the Feldenkrais method, what has its biggest impact on you been?
Oh, the biggest impact
On
me.
you personally, yeah.
I must say it's the communication skill, just being able to connect with people. That's the biggest thing that I learned, and just like working with someone, giving the FI, and the first thing that all the practitioners, us, would be able to do is be present, and then listen with the hands, with your eyes, with your ears, and you have to be present. You have to give all your attention to the person, and that's just such a basic concept, but yet it is so powerful. It really changes your life, and it changed my life.
Yeah. 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 Connection for me too. Just not being so abstract. Well, you talked about learning, and a lot of people in our culture, they would say that they were lifelong learners, and maybe they read a book frequently, or they take a class here and there. But the type of learning that you're talking about is more of a learning in presence, and a learning in experience, and a learning in being connected to the environment around you, and so that's a big deal for me. Just connection in that sense of even being connected to other people in the world, not in your own world. That sense of presence, just what you're talking about, very powerful for that. I'm so glad that I took the training.
Yeah, me too.
Tell us a little bit about, now it seems like you're pretty much focusing on exactly what you said there. So I'd like to hear some of your success stories, because I know you have some, or in any area, especially the area you just mentioned with the 50 and 60-year-olds, so that they build a foundation and beyond just balance. So if you want to change your balance, what do you have to change in terms of your self-image? In other words, I don't want to make that too hard.
What do I have to change in my self-image?
In terms of your clients, what do they have to change in terms of their self-image to balance better?
Oh, to balance better.
Yeah.
I don't know if they need to change anything, because I do believe that all the changes, this is one of my Feldenkrais training trainers, Angel and Richard, over and over told us, just trust their process, trust your process, trust their nervous system, and let their nervous system do the job. And I became to really understand that. And in working in a PT, we have a specific agenda that we want to get to. But then when I let that go, then I really start to understand and just take a step back and observe and listen and see what happens. And I can start to understand that each person's nervous system is so intelligent and smart that it has the ability to do and optimize and do what it's supposed to do, and it knows what it's supposed to do. So I don't know necessarily if they need to change anything, but I do focus, again, being present for them, and then I can provide conditions for learning to take place.
So let me put the question the other way around. As they improve their balance, what other aspect of their life does that improve? Well, what's their reaction to that? In other words, wouldn't you say that falling is really associated with fears? So I'm just put the question the other way. What do you see as changes in the patient after they improve their balance in terms of the benefits for their life and how they feel about it?
Oh, sure. For example, one of my clients had told me after 1 or 2 sessions, and we didn't even talk about the balance. That's the funny thing. And then she came back and said, one thing that I noticed was that at night, in the middle of the night, she wakes up and then she goes to the bathroom, and typically, so then she has to take the stairs to go to the bathroom, and she's typically hang on to the railing. But she realized that she wasn't really doing that, right? So that's something, yeah. So that's something that she just realized, and that we didn't even talk about. I didn't ask that. That's just, okay, well, wait a minute. Oh, this is something that I just noticed last night. Like, well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's exactly what I was trying to get you to, bring out some of your success stories, because I know you have them.
Sure.
So, yeah. So,
sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
So what would you add? What would you like our listeners to really know about the practicality of the Feldenkrais method?
Oh, practicality on the Feldenkrais method. And this is what I tell everyone. Whether you're whether you're a yoga practitioner, martial artist, athlete, or even care to do the sports, anything. It is about the life. It is about your life. Okay. And then I ask everybody, what do you enjoy? What do you enjoy the most?
Yeah.
What do you enjoy the most? What do you do? What makes you feel who you are? What makes you feel so alive and lively? And from there, so what each lesson that I bring in, whether it's an ATM or an FI, a functional integration, okay, then I try to relate to their life story. So how does that impact you? And how does that impact your life, what you do?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So that's excellent. I want to ask you, how many, when you see a patient, so they walk in the door and you look at them and you're present with them, and then do you interview them a little bit and
Sure. Yeah.
and then how do you decide what to suggest to the patient in terms of how many lessons they need or
yeah. How do I decide? It's many factors, such as what's my schedule, their schedule. So time-wise, okay, or do we have a time constraints? I try not to worry so much about the financial problem, this financial being a constraint, because it's not my job to decide that, but that's their job to decide that. So I just present, this is what I offer. 5 package, the 5 class or the session packages, the 10 session packages, but I do tell them that consistency is a key. And so if they're wanting to make out of something and improve and make an impact on their lives, and they do need to make a commitment also. And I make a commitment, so they do need to make a commitment. So if they're only coming here once and then several months later, okay, can I come by? Is that going to do something? Yes, it does do something. It impacts you, impacts your life. But if you really want something change, and then I say, be consistent, and I'm going to commit to you. And so can you do that once a week? Can you come once a week? And this is how you're going to get the most out of the sessions from me.
So how does that approach, you probably learned a lot about commitment and that approach in your martial arts training, your upbringing in martial arts. Did that naturally make you a little bit better at communicating the need for commitment, your martial arts background?
I'm sure. And martial arts and sports, rugby, disciplines, and just be accountable, be responsible. Okay? It is about you. If you want to make a difference in your life, it is you. It's not me who's going to decide.
Yeah.
I really make a point. I'm not the one changing your life. You are. You are.
Right.
I'm here to guide you, and I'm your resource. But if you rely on me to change your life and do something for you, I'm not the one. Sorry.
Yeah. So, do you have clients that you see for one time and they're not going to be committed to helping themselves, and you kind of convey that to them, or do you, as the relationship develops?
Well, of course, I will. I'll be respectful and listen, trying to understand where they're coming from. But I do express my honest observation, and this is what I think.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, Taro, very likely we'll be moving up to Oregon again soon. I certainly hope I get a chance to meet you in person someday.
Oh, okay. So are you in California now?
We're in California right now. It's closer to my mom, who's 96, but we'll be moving back to Oregon eventually. But I'd certainly like to meet you because I very much want this conversation. So I'm going to ask you now, is there anything else you'd like your listeners to know about your practice or about the Feldenkrais method?
Um, if my listeners, our listeners like to learn more about my practice, and please visit my website, transformmove.com.
Okay.
And then I do have a YouTube channel, Better Balance with Taro, Better Balance with the Taro Iwamoto. And you can look up my name and type it in the search box in YouTube. And I do have over 100 videos of the move.
Amazing.
So,
amazing. And I have seen, one or two of them. You have some on LinkedIn, I think.
Yeah.
And I've been very appreciative of how you've been able to take maybe one ATM lesson and just teach one movement out of it. That's very important,
Yeah, right. Attention span. Everybody's busy these days, right? So trying to keep it nice and short.
Yeah. Okay, so it's taramoto.com. It's transformmove.com.
Transformmove.com, yes.
TRANS, the letter 4, and move.com. There you go. Okay, you had it prepared. Perfect.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted people to see, yeah. And then YouTube, Taro
Iwamoto.
Iwamoto.com. Or on YouTube. Yeah, just search on YouTube. Yeah.
Taro Iwamoto, search on YouTube. Yep.
Right.
Find me.
Well, thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, thank you. My pleasure.
I really appreciate it. Yeah, you really brought a lot to the show and explained the Feldenkrais method and what you do. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, we'll end the meeting here. Let's see. There's nobody on to ask questions, so we'll just end it now.
Okay.
But I want people to know that they can ask questions later because we'll post this. I will send you the file if you want it.
Oh, please.
Yeah. Okay, so people can ask questions when we post this on YouTube, when I post it on the Aware Athlete group on Facebook. You can still ask questions. So,
awesome. Yeah.
All right, we'll go ahead and end the meeting here. And I hope to talk to you again soon.
Oh, likewise. Thank you.